Even the strongest foundations can crumble in a moment, especially when they were built on trust no one thought to question. The gentle hum of Marissa Dalton's car engine died as she pulled into her driveway earlier than expected from her business trip. Her husband's Tesla sat in its usual spot, though he wasn't supposed to be home either. A faint smile crossed her face. Maybe Callum had planned a surprise for her return. After 11 years together, he still found ways to make her heart flutter. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across their modern craftsman-style home's manicured lawn. Everything looked exactly as she had left it 3 days ago. The cheerful flower pots bursting with marigolds, Lila's red scooter propped against the side steps, the welcome mat crooked from their 4-year-old's energetic back and forth. Marissa grabbed her overnight bag from the trunk. Her heels clicked against the smooth flagstone path. The presentation in Seattle had gone better than expected, wrapping up a day early. She couldn't wait to scoop Lila into her arms and breathe in her daughter's familiar scent of bubblegum shampoo and summertime. The house was oddly quiet as she slipped through the front door. No patter of tiny feet. No cartoon music from the living room TV. No sounds of Callum working in his study. Their housekeeper wasn't due until the next morning, so the stillness felt off. "Lila? Callum?" Marissa called out, dropping her keys in the ceramic bowl by the door. It had been a wedding gift from Callum's mother, its soft gray and gold design a constant reminder of family ties and tradition. A muffled sound from upstairs caught her attention. Then another. Her heart rate quickened, though she couldn't say why. Years of trust and routine clashed with a sudden, creeping sense of dread. Marissa climbed the stairs slowly, her fingers brushing the cool wooden banister. The sounds grew clearer, voices, movement, a laugh she didn't recognize. It came from their bedroom. The door was slightly ajar, a slice of golden light stretching into the hallway. Time seemed to slow as she approached. Later, she'd remember every detail with agonizing clarity. The unfamiliar perfume, the rush of her breath, the tremble in her fingers as they touched the door. The scene that met her eyes shattered everything. Callum, her husband, her partner, her foundation, was tangled up with a woman Marissa recognized as his new assistant. They hadn't noticed her yet, still lost in their betrayal, desecrating the same bed Marissa had peacefully slept in just 3 nights before. The sound that escaped her throat wasn't quite a scream, it was something rawer, deeper. The sound of absolute trust disintegrating. They scrambled apart, but Marissa was already backing away. Callum's face drained of all color, his mouth moving, forming words she couldn't hear over the roaring in her ears. The assistant, what was her name? Alyssa? Rachel? Clutched the sheets to her chest, her eyes wide with either shame or fear, or both. Marissa, wait, Callum's voice finally pierced the fog. Callum's voice finally pierced the fog. I can explain. Where's Lila? The words came out surprisingly steady, even though Marissa's entire body was shaking. At my mother's, she snapped. Marissa spun on her heel and flew down the stairs, Callum's footsteps pounding behind her. The perfect house suddenly felt like a museum of lies. Every framed picture, every memory soaked in betrayal. She reached her car just as Callum came bursting through the front door, wearing only hastily pulled-on sweatpants. Marissa, please, it was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. The words slammed into her like punches. Didn't mean anything. Their 11 years, their promises, their family, flattened into nothing by a few minutes of meaningless betrayal. She couldn't feel her legs, couldn't remember how her lungs worked. Her world had narrowed to that one phrase. It didn't mean anything. As if the years of trust, of love, of shared dreams were disposable, erasable with a shrug. Through the windshield, she caught sight of their neighbor, Mrs. Delgado, watering her roses, clearly pretending not to see what was happening on their flawless suburban street. Marissa's hands gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles went white. I'm getting our daughter, she said, her voice ice. Don't follow me. As she backed out of the driveway, she glanced once in the rearview mirror. Callum stood barefoot on the freshly trimmed lawn, arms outstretched like a man begging the storm not to come. The image seared itself into her mind, a snapshot of the moment her life split in two. She was halfway to her mother-in-law's house before the first tear fell. By the time Marissa pulled up to the large craftsman home nestled in the foothills of Oregon wine country, The sun had vanished behind a wash of dusk. Her hands were steady now, but her chest, empty, scooped out and echoing. She caught her reflection in the mirror, quickly wiped away the mascara streaks. Lila couldn't see her like this. Margot Dalton opened the door before Marissa could knock. Her perfectly set silver curls gleamed beneath the porch light. "You're back early, dear. Lila's just finishing her." She stopped mid-sentence as her eyes took in Marissa's face. "What happened?" "I need to take Lila home. Now." Marissa didn't recognize her own voice, but what was home anymore? Inside, Lila's delighted squeal cut through the tension. "Mommy," she raced toward Marissa, her tiny arms wrapping tight around her legs, golden curls bouncing. "Grandma made cookies and I helped. They're shaped like stars." Marissa scooped her daughter into her arms and inhaled her warm, sweet scent. "That's wonderful, baby." She forced a smile even though it felt like her face would shatter. "How about we go on a little adventure?" Margot's sharp eyes narrowed. "Marissa, what's going on? Where's Callum?" Just the sound of his name sent another wave of nausea curling through her. "Ask your son," Marissa said tightly, already walking toward the stairs. "Lila, sweetie, let's pack your overnight bag." In Lila's room at her grandmother's, Marissa moved on autopilot, gathering pajamas, stuffed animals, and favorite books. Her phone buzzed over and over again. Callum's face lit the screen, disappearing, reappearing, a digital ghost she couldn't shake. "Mommy? Why are you crying?" Lila's small hand brushed Marissa's cheek. Only then did she realize the tears were back. "Sometimes grown-ups cry when they're thinking really hard about something," she said softly, zipping up the pink backpack. "Remember how we talked about big feelings?" Lila nodded solemnly. "Like when I was sad about Mr. Whiskers running away?" The memory hit like a wave, of another life, one where Marissa still believed in the foundation of her marriage, the sanctity of trust. Margot appeared in the doorway, phone in hand. "Callum just called me. He's frantic. Whatever this is, surely the two of you can know." The words shot out, sharp enough to make Lila flinch. Marissa softened her tone. "No, Margot. Not this time." She grabbed Lila's coat from the hook, her mind already racing. They couldn't go back to that house, not to those rooms soaked in betrayal. They needed somewhere safe. Somewhere far from the suffocating weight of broken trust. Somewhere she could breathe without feeling like every memory was poisoned. Somewhere Lila could grow up without hearing her mother cry through closed doors. Seabrook. The name floated into her thoughts like a lifeline. She had visited the coastal town last year for a literacy symposium and fallen for its quiet charm and soothing calm. It was 3 states away, far enough to breathe, to think, to rebuild. "Lila, remember that pretty beach town Mommy told you about, with the seashells and the lighthouse?" Lila's eyes lit up. "Where the mermaids live?" "That's right, baby." Marissa managed a thin, tear-glazed smile. "How would you like to go see it?" Margot stepped forward, alarm all over her face. "Marissa, you can't just leave. Whatever Callum did." "What he did?" "What he did," Marissa cut in, voice trembling with tightly held rage, "was destroy everything we built, everything we promised each other." She hoisted Lila onto her hip and grabbed the backpack with her free hand. "Tell him not to follow us. If he tries—" She stopped herself, conscious of her daughter's wide eyes and listening ears. "Just tell him to leave us alone." The drive back to their neighborhood was a blur. Marissa parked 2 blocks away and waited, crouched low in the front seat, using the small binoculars she always kept in the glove compartment. Only once Callum pulled out of the driveway in his Tesla, presumably out searching for them, did she move. Inside, Lila chattered about mermaids while Marissa moved through the house like a ghost with a mission. She packed essentials, documents, clothes, necessities. She avoided the bed completely. Its presence was a cruel monument, clean sheets over tainted trust, pillows that had once cradled dreams, now saturated with betrayal. Instead, she went straight to the safe behind their wedding photo. Inside, she retrieved emergency cash, passports, and a separate set of bank cards. Accounts she'd kept in her name only. Her mother had once called it insurance for the unexpected. 20 minutes later, they were on the highway east-east. Lila had already dozed off in her car seat, her stuffed rabbit Oliver tucked protectively in her arms. Marissa's tears had finally run dry, replaced by something colder, sharper, a resolve like steel. She would rebuild, she would recover. And someday, When she was strong again, she would make Callum Dalton regret the day he shattered her trust. 2 days later, the morning fog rolled thick over the coast as Marissa guided their rental car through the narrow cobblestone streets of Seabrook. They had stopped only for fast meals and a few hours of sleep in roadside motels. When the lighthouse finally emerged through the mist, it looked just like she remembered. Tall, still, and quietly powerful. "Look, Lila," Marissa said softly, pointing out the window. "Just like in the pictures." Her daughter pressed her face against the window, Oliver the rabbit squished between her cheek and the glass. "Is that where the mermaids live?" Lila asked, pointing toward the steel-gray waves peeking between rows of old coastal buildings. "Maybe," Marissa replied, managing a soft smile. "We'll have to explore and find out." Their temporary home was a small cottage on Seabreeze Drive, rented sight unseen through an agency that didn't ask many questions. As they pulled into the shell-covered driveway, Marissa's throat tightened. The cottage looked exactly as described. Weathered blue shutters, a wraparound porch with a creaky swing, and a tiny front garden overrun with wild roses and sea lavender. The key was under the mat, just as promised. Inside, the cottage smelled of sea salt and lemony cleaning solution. Lila immediately ran from room to room, her excited squeals bouncing off the bare walls. "Mommy, my room has clouds on the ceiling." Marissa followed more slowly, taking it all in. The furniture was minimal but clean. The kitchen was cramped but functional. From the living room windows, she could see the ocean. Its constant motion was oddly calming, a balm for her frayed edges. Her phone buzzed. Another message from Callum. She'd kept the phone off for most of the drive, only turning it on now and then to check for emergencies. The screen now overflowed with missed texts. "Please come home. We can fix this. At least tell me you're both safe. I've changed all the passwords to our accounts." That last one made her blood boil. Of course he had. Always the businessman trying to stay in control. But Marissa had planned for that. She'd transferred funds to her personal account before they left. 12 years married to a man who lived off leverage had taught her something. Always protect your options. A knock at the door made her jump. Peeking through the peephole, she saw an older woman holding what looked like a casserole dish. Marissa cracked the door open. "Hello?" "Welcome to Seabrook," the woman said, smiling warmly. Her gray hair was wild in the sea breeze. "I'm Eleanor Renshaw, your neighbor 2 doors down. Saw you pulling in and thought you might like a hot meal after traveling." Before Marissa could respond, Lila appeared beside her. "Is that mac and cheese I smell?" Eleanor laughed. "Sharp nose on this one. Yes, indeed, it's my special recipe. I've been feeding newcomers to Seabrook for 40 years. Something in Eleanor's kind eyes chipped at Marissa's defenses. "That's very kind of you. Would you like to come in?" Over steaming bowls of the richest, creamiest macaroni and cheese Marissa had ever tasted, Eleanor revealed herself to be a wellspring of local knowledge. She seemed to know everyone in town, especially the head librarian at the Seabrook Public Library. "Margaret's getting on in years," Eleanor said with a knowing look, "and she's been looking for someone reliable to help out." Eleanor explained while watching Lila methodically separate her macaroni and cheese into neat little piles. "Been saying for months, Margaret needs someone with actual library experience." Marissa's heart skipped. I actually have my master's in library science." "Do you now?" Eleanor's eyes twinkled. "Well, isn't that something? Providence, maybe. You know, dear," she leaned in slightly, "sometimes the universe nudges us exactly where we're supposed to be." Marissa smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. She'd heard words like that before, in other towns, in other interviews, places that smiled back politely but never called again. "Too experienced," they said. "Overqualified," they offered, like a compliment, when what they meant was too complicated. She'd stopped counting the rejection emails. So when Eleanor spoke those words, they didn't feel magical. They felt like a test she wasn't sure she could bear to hope for again. Later that night, after tucking Lila into her cloud-ceilinged room, Marissa stood on the porch, staring out at the waves. Eleanor's words swirled through her mind, mixing with flashes of a past life, one where she'd once believed in perfect marriages and fairy tale endings. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Margot. "Whatever he did, running away isn't the answer. Think of Lila." Marissa's fingers tightened around the phone. She was thinking of Lila, of teaching her that sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do is start over. That leaving didn't always mean fleeing. It could be a strategic retreat to regroup, to rebuild. The Seabrook breeze carried the rhythmic hush of the surf. Even the fiercest storms, it seemed, had to end eventually. Tomorrow, she'd visit the library. Tomorrow, she'd begin building something new from the ashes of what she'd lost. And one day, when the time was right, she would make Callum understand exactly what he had thrown away. The Seabrook Public Library stood like a weathered Victorian sentinel at the end of Harbor Street. Its red brick exterior faded from decades of sea wind and salt air. Marissa paused at the foot of the granite steps, smoothing the front of her navy blazer, the only professional item she'd managed to grab during their frantic escape. "You can do this," she whispered to herself, checking her reflection in her phone screen. The woman staring back looked pulled together. Professional, maybe even confident, if you didn't look too hard at her eyes. Inside, the scent of old books and polished oak eased her nerves immediately. Morning light streamed through tall windows, laying golden ribbons across the floor and highlighting the dust motes that danced between the shelves. A loud crash echoed from somewhere deep in the stacks, making her jump. "Damn it all, too." A deep voice caught itself mid-curse. "Sorry about that, folks." Marissa followed the sound and found a tall man struggling to keep a wobbly shelf from toppling over while juggling an armful of teetering books. Without hesitation, she rushed forward and caught several hardcovers just before they hit the floor. "Thanks," he said, flashing a grateful smile that crinkled the corners of his moss-green eyes. His flannel shirt was dusted with sawdust, and a tool belt rode low on his hips. "I'm Graham Sullivan, the library's resident fix-it guy, though clearly I'm not doing a stellar job of proving that right now." "Marissa Dalton," she replied, hesitating before adding, "I'm here about the librarian position." "Oh, Eleanor's newcomer." Recognition brightened his expression. "Margaret's been hoping you'd stop in. Fair warning, this place, that shelf's just the beginning. There's a lot that needs work around here." As if on cue, Margaret Wells emerged from her office, her silver hair escaping a messy bun. She took one look at the half-collapsed shelf and sighed. "Graham, dear. Please tell me you're not demolishing my library," Margaret called out, arms crossed with mock disapproval. "Structural integrity check," Graham replied, winking at Marissa. "Just showing your potential new hire what she's getting into." Margaret's eyes lit up as she turned toward her. "Miss Dalton, Eleanor mentioned you might come by. Shall we chat in my office?" She glanced back at Graham. "Try not to bring down any load-bearing walls while we're gone." The interview felt more like tea with an old friend than anything formal. Margaret's office was warm and lived in, full of family pictures and shelves overflowing with books and notepads, the kind of gentle chaos that came from years of loving a place deeply. "Your credentials are impressive," Margaret said, scrolling through Marissa's digital resume. "But may I ask, why Seabrook? We're not exactly a career-making destination." Marissa had rehearsed a tidy answer for that, but what came out instead was the truth. "I needed somewhere to rebuild, for my daughter and me." She met Margaret's kind eyes. "Sometimes life just forces you to start over." Understanding flickered in the older woman's gaze. "Well, my dear," she said softly, "you've come to the right place. Seabrook has a way of healing broken things." She looked meaningfully out the window, where Graham was now securely anchoring the shelf. "All kinds of broken things." By the time Marissa left the library, she had a job, one with a modest salary that would cover their basic needs, and a start date for the following Monday. She also had Graham Sullivan's business card, with his personal cell scribbled on the back. "In case any shelves attack you when I'm not around," he'd said with that easy smile. Walking home along the shore, Marissa pulled out her phone. 3 more missed calls from Callum, and 1 email from his lawyer about access to their joint accounts. The peace of her morning shattered as anger welled in her chest. Once home, she opened her laptop. Lila was on the porch, happily sorting through her new seashell collection. It was time. If Callum thought he could manipulate her through finances, he clearly forgot how well she knew his business practices. His shortcuts, his creative contract work, and that offshore account he thought was still a secret. "Mommy, look what I found," Lila barreled in, holding up a perfectly coiled seashell. Graham from the library said it's called a nautilus. He showed me while he was fixing Miss Eleanor's porch swing. Marissa closed the laptop and turned toward her daughter. It's beautiful, baby. Should we add it to your special collection? As she helped Lila place the shell with her other treasures, Marissa had a quiet realization. Rebuilding and revenge didn't have to be separate. Like the nautilus shell, she could create something new, something strong, without losing her core. Maybe justice wasn't about rage. Maybe it was about precision. That night, after Lila fell asleep, Marissa sat in the soft blue glow of her laptop screen. She opened a new document and titled it Project Nautilus. Then she began outlining exactly how to dismantle Callum Dalton's carefully curated world, one hidden secret at a time. 2 weeks in, and her research had uncovered more than she ever expected. Callum's offshore accounts had only scratched the surface. There were shady contracts, unusual wire transfers, and a repeated pattern of financial manipulation that turned Marissa's stomach. "You always did underestimate me," she muttered, saving yet another document into her growing archive of evidence. Throughout their marriage, she had perfected the role of the supportive wife, attending business dinners, making polite conversation with investors, blending into the background while quietly absorbing more than anyone realized. A text buzzed across her screen, breaking her focus. "Shelf-feeding monsters have been vanquished. Library safe for tomorrow, G." Despite herself, Marissa smiled. Over the past 2 weeks, Graham had become a constant presence around the library, though she suspected not all of his repairs were urgent. She'd learned he lived alone in a craftsman home he'd restored himself, brewed surprisingly good coffee from the ancient percolator in the break room, and had a golden retriever named Cooper who loved belly rubs and peanut butter. Another buzz, her smile disappeared. Callum Dalton, his messages had become increasingly panicked. "The board is asking questions. About you, about us. Please, Marissa, we need to talk like adults. You're going to destroy everything we built." She laughed bitterly. "You destroyed it first." She typed the reply, then deleted it. No contact was smarter. Let him sweat, let her build. Still, the cursor blinked at her, like judgment. She hesitated, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Not because she believed Callum deserved grace, but because a part of her, the part that used to believe in vows and forgiveness, felt like she was crossing a line she couldn't uncross. She was about to become not just the victim, but the executioner. And that weight pressed down heavy, even if he'd earned every consequence. A soft knock on her bedroom door startled her. "Mommy?" Lila's voice was small. "I had a bad dream." Marissa quickly shut her laptop. "Come here, baby." Lila climbed into bed, holding Oliver tight to her chest. "I dreamed about Daddy," she whispered. "He was looking for us, but he couldn't see us, and he was crying." The words landed like a punch. Marissa wrapped her arms around her daughter, inhaling the soft lavender scent of her shampoo. "Sometimes dreams are how our brains try to understand big changes," she said carefully. "Do you miss Daddy?" Lila nodded, then added softly, "But I don't want you to be sad anymore. Graham makes you smile like before, out of the mouths of babes." Marissa gently stroked her daughter's curls, marveling at how perceptive she had become. "Graham is a nice friend," she said, keeping her tone neutral. "Cooper likes me better than Oliver," Lila murmured, eyes already closing, recalling the afternoon spent in Graham's workshop while he repaired some old library chairs. Cooper had completely won her over with sloppy kisses and goofy tricks. After Lila drifted off, Marissa remained awake, her thoughts buzzing. Tomorrow, she'd submit her first anonymous tip to the SEC, backed by meticulously cross-checked documents. It would trigger a financial investigation that could bring Callum's empire crashing down, but Lila's voice echoed in her mind. Was she chasing justice or revenge? And even if it was justice, was she prepared to wear what it would cost her? She pictured Lila's face, innocent and trusting, and wondered, would her daughter one day see her as strong or ruthless? And what right did she have to build something warm with someone like Graham while secretly dismantling the world she once shared with her daughter's father? Her phone lit up one more time. Cooper misses his storytime buddy. Weekend picnic at the lighthouse? The invitation hung there, simple, open, and full of quiet possibility. Graham, who never asked for anything, who expected nothing, who offered only steady friendship and soft, sincere smiles. Graham, who looked at her like she was whole, not damaged, not lost. She thought of Callum's face when she caught him, of the way he'd tried to tighten his grip even as she walked away. The memory fueled her resolve. She could have both justice and joy. One didn't cancel out the other. For so long she'd thought love and power couldn't coexist. Now, with Graham, she saw it could. Not control, not silence, just steady presence. Someone who stayed. "Picnic sounds perfect," she texted. "Lila will be thrilled." Then she opened her laptop one more time, scanned her carefully organized files, double-checked her attachments, and scheduled the email to the SEC for 9 a.m. sharp. As she drifted to sleep, she could almost hear the ocean in the distance. Waves crashing against the rocks, a reminder that once some forces are set in motion, nothing can stop them. The morning headline hit like a tidal wave. Dalton International under SEC investigation. Marissa's hands shook as she scrolled through the financial headlines on her phone. Graham's coffee sat untouched beside her in the library break room, growing cold. The investigation she had triggered was moving faster and louder than she anticipated. Stock prices plunging, board calls emergency meeting, sources suggest widespread financial misconduct. The words blurred on the screen, but there was no mistaking it. She did this. She actually did this. A quiet thrill surged through her, quickly drowned by a wave of fear. She had finally struck the blow, but now, what came next? Earth to Lee. Graham's voice pulled her out of her spiral. He leaned in the doorway, concern etched between his brows. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Just catching up on the news," she replied, quickly locking her phone. The guilt of keeping secrets from him twisted in her gut. Graham crossed the room and slid a small paper bag toward her. "Made you something." Inside was a handcrafted wooden box, inlaid with tiny seashells and driftwood. Every corner was smooth, every detail intentional. "For your special treasures?" he explained, flushing slightly. "Lila said you collect sea glass." The box took her breath away. Here was a man who noticed details, who built things with his hands, who gave without strings. Everything Callum wasn't. She wanted to fall into him, to let herself believe this small moment was safe. But her world was still shaking. Her phone buzzed aggressively. Margot's name lit the screen. She declined the call, but texts flooded in seconds later. "What have you done?" "Callum's unraveling. The company is in chaos. Think about what this means for Lila's future." That one hit hardest. The trust fund, Lila's education, was tied to Dalton International's now collapsing stock. "Marissa," Graham said gently, "whatever's going on, you can talk to me." For one fleeting moment she wanted to. She wanted to tell him everything. Callum's betrayal, the quiet revenge, the satisfaction and the guilt fighting in her chest. She wanted him to understand that she hadn't just broken the rules. She had broken herself in the process. But she didn't. Graham, with his honest work and soft heart, how could he understand the shadows she had walked into? "Just family drama," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Nothing to worry about." Then she stood and walked back into the library. The door chimed, and Margaret's voice echoed gently through the stacks. "Marissa, there's a gentleman here asking to see you. Quite insistent, actually. I'd say a bit aggressive." Her blood ran cold. Through the narrow break-room door gap, she caught a flash of a sleek suit and gleaming shoes. Not Callum, one of his lawyers. Graham must have sensed the shift in her. Without a word, he stood, positioning himself between her and the door. "Back entrance. Through the archive room," he murmured. "I'll handle this. You don't have to." "I want to," she whispered back. His green eyes met hers, steady, unwavering, protective. "Go pick Lila up early. Take her to that ice cream place she likes." Marissa nodded, grabbed her bag, and paused briefly at the back door. Through the small window, she watched as Graham confronted the lawyer. His usual easy expression was gone, replaced by something harder. Focused. He was buying her time, protecting her, even without knowing what she was running from. The guilt nearly stopped her in her tracks as she slipped into the alley. Her phone buzzed. Another news alert. Dalton International stock down another 15%. Major clients pulling out. Criminal charges being discussed. This was what she had worked toward, wasn't it? To tear Callum's empire down, brick by dishonest brick, to make him feel what she had felt the day she found him in their bed with someone else. But instead of triumph, there was just emptiness. The small wooden box Graham had made weighed heavily in her tote, a symbol of something genuine, something she was now in danger of destroying. At a red light, another text appeared, from Callum. I know it was you, Marissa. Only you knew about Monaco. We need to talk, or things will get worse. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel until her knuckles went white. She'd known this moment would come, had planned for it. But still, it felt like she was the one trapped now, snared in the consequences of her own design. The offshore wind screamed along the coastline as she stood at the window of her little seaside cottage, watching dark clouds roll in from the horizon. The storm outside mirrored the one inside her. Her laptop still sat open on the table. Dalton International CEO fights back. Callum Dalton accuses unnamed insider of corporate sabotage. He denies all wrongdoing. He had given a press conference. Slick, confident, full of carefully curated indignation. He hadn't used her name. Not yet. But his message couldn't have been clearer. He knew, and he was ready to fight. Someone with intimate knowledge of our operations, Callum had told the press, his gaze direct into the camera lens. Someone who betrayed not just our company, but our family, will face the full consequences of their actions. A knock startled Marissa. She turned. Graham stood on her porch, rain soaking into his jacket, a newspaper in his hand. The look on his face told her everything. He'd read the story. Want to tell me what's really going on? He asked, voice low. Marissa stepped aside to let him in, her heart pounding. The moment she dreaded had finally arrived. Graham, Before you answer, he said, cutting her off gently, you should know something. His voice had shifted, firm, guarded. Your ex-husband's lawyer came back to the library. He was asking questions about you, about us. Graham's jaw clenched. He implied things that made me uncomfortable. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the room in white. I told him to leave, Graham added. Told him it was none of his business. Then he looked at her. But Marissa, if this thing between us means anything, I need the truth. The handcrafted wooden box sat on the mantel, catching flashes of stormlight. A silent witness. How had everything become so complicated? She'd come to Seabrook for safety. Peace. A place to breathe. She hadn't expected someone like Graham. Someone who saw through her armor, who made her believe in something as fragile as hope. And now, she stood on the edge of losing him, not because he didn't care, but because she had chosen to carry the weight of it all alone. The man in those headlines, she began, her voice no more than a whisper. Callum Dalton, she swallowed. He's not just my ex-husband. He's a liar, a cheater, and a criminal. She met Graham's eyes. I found proof of his financial crimes, and yes, I sent it to the SEC. Her chin lifted, resolve returning. He deserves everything that's happening to him. Graham stood still, silent, processing. And us? He asked quietly. Was I just part of the plan? A convenient cover for your new life? No. The word burst from her lips with such intensity it startled them both. You are, the only thing I never planned. Tears burned, but she didn't let them fall. You and Lila, you're the only real parts of this entire mess. Her voice cracked under the pressure of unspoken truths, of nights spent awake, building a case while pretending everything was okay. Her phone buzzed. Another email from Callum's legal team. She read it once, then showed it to Graham. Threats to freeze her accounts, a move to contest custody, accusations of corporate espionage. They're coming after me, she admitted, voice shaking. He won't stop until he's burned down everything I have left. Graham read the message, his face darkening. These are serious threats, Marissa. I know. Then why didn't you tell me? Because I'm ashamed, she said, the words tearing out of her. I wanted revenge so badly, I didn't think through what it might cost. She looked away. Now Lila's trust fund is worthless. My job might be at risk. And you? She turned from him, unable to bear his expression. You deserve better than someone who could do this. The silence between them stretched, broken only by the rumble of thunder and the ticking of Marissa's grandmother's old wall clock. Finally, Graham moved. She braced for the sound of the door. Instead, his arms wrapped around her from behind, solid, warm, unwavering. You're wrong, he murmured into her hair. What I deserve is someone real. Someone who fights for what she believes in, who protects what she loves. He turned her gently to face him. Someone brave enough to tell the truth, even when it terrifies her. Lightning flashed again, casting shifting shadows across his face. I'm not walking away, Marissa. But we need a plan. If Callum's coming after you, he's going to learn. He's not the only one who knows how to fight. Before she could speak, her phone rang. Lila's school. Mrs. Dalton, there's someone here claiming to be Mr. Dalton's mother, insisting she's here to pick up Lila. We just wanted to verify. Marissa's blood ran ice cold. The storm wasn't coming anymore. It was here. Windshield wipers battled sheets of rain as their car sped through the streets of Seabrook. Graham was behind the wheel. Marissa's hands were too unsteady to drive. Her mind raced through worst-case scenarios. Margot at Lila's school. Callum's final move. Everything unraveling. We'll get there in time, Graham said, voice calm, navigating the flooded streets with precision. His steadiness grounded her, even as panic clawed at her chest. She knows not to go with anyone but me, Marissa whispered, more to reassure herself than him. We have a code word, everything. Her phone rang again. Callum. After weeks of silencing him, she answered. Where is she? His voice was cold, controlled. Gone was the desperation. Safe. From you. Marissa snapped. Call off your mother, Callum. This isn't the way. He laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Oh, gathering evidence behind my back for months was the way? Blowing up my company was the way? Then his voice changed. Cooler, more calculated. You know what's interesting, Marissa? The SEC is very curious about how their anonymous source got access to such detailed internal documents. You'd need unauthorized access to get that kind of information. Her heart dropped. He was right. She'd used his old credentials, dug into restricted folders. You wouldn't, she breathed. Lila needs both of us, he said, voice dropping into that low, persuasive tone she used to fall for. Come home. We can fix this. A pause. The board will back off. I'll tell them it was a misunderstanding. This whole little revenge thing? Forgotten. Graham's hand reached for hers across the console, a gentle squeeze. That small, steady pressure gave her strength. No, Marissa said firmly. You don't get to manipulate me anymore. Whatever happens next, I'm done living in your shadow. They screeched into the school parking lot just as Margot was stepping out of the building with Lila in tow. The little girl's face lit up the moment she spotted her mother's car. Mommy, Lila called out, trying to pull away from her grandmother. Margot's polished hand tightened on her shoulder. Marissa was out of the car before it had fully stopped. Graham was right behind her. Rain soaked her hair, plastered it to her skin, but she didn't feel it. Let her go, Marissa demanded, closing the distance. This has gone far enough. Margot's silver hair somehow defied the downpour. Her expression was tight, unwavering. You're acting like a child, Marissa, running away, spreading lies about Callum. Lies? Marissa let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Ask your son about Monaco, about the offshore accounts. Ask what happened to his partner's investment fund. Margot's face paled. You don't know what you're talking about. I know everything, Marissa shot back, her voice rising above the wind. Every backdoor deal, every buried scandal. Did you really think I spent 12 years beside him and didn't learn his playbook? Lila looked between them, confused and frightened, her brow creased. Mommy, the code word's lighthouse, right? A wave of pride surged through Marissa, her smart, brave girl. That's right, baby, come here. Margot's grip faltered. Lila broke free and ran into her mother's arms. Graham stepped forward, placing himself between them and Margot like a quiet wall. This isn't over, Margot warned, retreating toward her sleek SUV. Callum won't let this go. No, Graham said, his voice like steel. But you tell Callum, if he tries anything like this again, every news outlet in the country will know exactly what kind of man he really is. He turned slightly toward Marissa and Lila. She's not alone anymore. As Margot drove away, Marissa held her daughter close, breathing in the familiar scent of vanilla shampoo and rain-soaked cotton. Her phone buzzed. Callum, you've made your choice. Don't say I didn't warn you. Graham wrapped his arms around both of them, creating a shield against the storm. We need to get somewhere safe, he said. I know a place. Graham's safe place was a restored lighthouse keeper's cottage, hidden on the rocky outskirts of Seabrook. Perched above the crashing waves, the small stone building looked as if it had survived 1,000 tempests, and was ready for one more. My grandfather was the last keeper here, Graham said as he ushered them inside. I've been restoring it slowly. No one knows I own it. It's not even in my name. The inside was surprisingly warm and inviting. Worn wooden floors, a cast-iron stove, and thick walls muffling the sound of wind. Lila immediately ran to the circular window seat, her hands pressed to the glass. "Look, Mommy, we can see the whole ocean from here." Marissa managed to smile, though her nerves were frayed thin. Her phone buzzed again and again, calls from Margot, from Callum's lawyers, and numbers she didn't recognize. She turned off her phone, unable to take any more. Graham built a fire in the old stove, while Marissa helped Lila change into dry clothes they'd pulled from a bin in the lighthouse cottage. The warmth, the simple routine, the quiet domesticity of it all hit her like a wave. This could have been just another ordinary family night, if everything had gone differently. "I made hot chocolate," Graham announced, balancing a wooden tray with 3 steaming mugs. "And I believe I spotted some marshmallows in the cupboard." Lila's eyes lit up, momentarily distracted from the storm brewing beyond the walls. But as she reached for her mug, her little face turned serious. "Is Daddy trying to take me away?" The question landed like a thunderclap. Marissa sat down beside her daughter, her voice soft but steady. "Your daddy, he's very angry with me right now. But I promise you, Lila," she reached out and took her small hand, "I won't let anyone take you anywhere you don't want to go." "But why is he mad? Is it 'cause we left?" Before Marissa could answer, the backup phone she'd only given to Eleanor buzzed on the table with an email alert. Her hands trembled as she opened it. "What is it?" Graham asked, noticing her expression. She read the message aloud. "It's from someone I used to work with at Dalton International. Callum's called an emergency board meeting tomorrow morning." She swallowed. "He's planning to accuse me of orchestrating corporate espionage, that I used insider knowledge to manipulate stocks. He's going to say I profited off the crash." Graham's jaw clenched. "Can he prove it?" "He doesn't need to," Marissa said bitterly. "Just the accusation is enough. That alone triggers an investigation. I could lose everything. Custody of Lila, even my freedom." The words tasted like ash, and for one terrifying second her mind flashed with images of courtrooms, custody hearings, strangers in suits deciding where her daughter would sleep at night. Her voice broke. "I thought I was so smart, turning his own secrets against him. But I walked right into his trap." Graham didn't flinch. "Then we fight," he said simply. "You have evidence of what he's done. Use it." "It's not that simple," she whispered. "I didn't get that evidence legally. I used his old passwords, went into files I wasn't authorized to see. If I release it now, we both go down." She let out a bitter, broken laugh. "He planned it perfectly. Check and mate." Lila slid her hand into Marissa's again. "I don't want to go with Daddy," she said softly. "He made you cry." The words sliced through Marissa's despair with the clarity only a child could bring. She wrapped her arms around her daughter, holding her close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo and rain. Everything she'd done, the revenge, the escape, the battle, had come from pain and betrayal. But in this moment, with her daughter in her lap and Graham sitting beside her steady and present, she realized what she was really fighting for. She realized what really mattered. Her phone chimed again. This time it was a message from Eleanor. Channel 7 news van parked outside the library. "Callum Dalton himself just arrived in town. He's looking for you." Graham read the message over her shoulder. "What do you want to do?" Marissa stood, her decision settling in her bones like something ancient and final. "I want to end this. No more running. No more revenge." She turned toward the storm-lashed windows. "Tomorrow morning, Callum expects to destroy me in front of his board, so I'm going to face him, tonight." "Not alone," Graham said, rising beside her. "No," she said, meeting his eyes, then looking at Lila curled up with a blanket. "Not alone. But I need you to keep her safe." "Nothing will go wrong," he said with quiet conviction, pulling her into a fierce embrace. "Because this time, you're fighting for the right reasons." The wind howled outside, but in Graham's arms with Lila safe nearby, Marissa found her center. Tomorrow might bring ruin, or justice, but tonight she was exactly where she needed to be. She just hoped it wouldn't be the last time she held them both. The Seabrook Public Library stood dark and still as Marissa approached. Rain fell in unrelenting sheets. A single light glowed in the reading room, her sanctuary, the place where she'd started to heal, where she'd learned to hope again. Of course, Callum had chosen this place. It was everything he wasn't: quiet, open, timeless. His black Mercedes gleamed like obsidian in the empty lot. Before entering, Marissa sent 2 emails. The first was loaded with every scrap of evidence she'd collected. It was scheduled to auto-send to the SEC and major news outlets by dawn if she didn't cancel it. The second was simpler, a letter to Lila, to be opened when she was older. A record of the truth and the choices her mother had made. The library door was unlocked. Inside, the scent of books and lemony wood polish wrapped around her like armor. Callum stood by the front desk, crisp and immaculate, his tailored suit in sharp contrast to the humble setting. "I always hated how much time you spent in places like this," he said instead of hello. "All those stories about other people's lives, never satisfied with your own." "You never understood me," Marissa replied evenly, keeping her distance. Red lights blinked from the security cameras. Graham had made sure they worked. "I loved our life," she said. "You're the one who burned it down." "I made one mistake." He stepped forward, hands open, pretending at humility. "One mistake, Marissa, and in return, you've dismantled everything I built." "Everything you stole?" she corrected coldly. "Shall we talk about Richard Chen's investment? The one that disappeared after his accident?" His face hardened. "Careful, Marissa. You're already facing serious charges, corporate espionage, insider trading. This could all end with mutual assured destruction." She didn't flinch. "If I go down, Callum, you go down harder." She met his gaze head on. "I have everything. Every document, every transfer, every lie." "You thought I was too stupid to notice." Marissa's voice didn't shake. "If this goes public, you'll risk prison. You'll lose Lila, but I will protect her from becoming like you." Callum moved faster than she expected, crossing the space between them in 2 strides. His fingers clamped down on her arm, and in that instant she saw him. Really saw him. Not the polished executive, not the charming husband. The real man behind the mask. "You think your handyman can protect you?" he hissed. "I own judges, politicians. I own the truth." She didn't flinch. "You have 1 hour. Call off the board meeting, withdraw your accusations, sign over full custody of Lila." His breath hitched. "In return, your secrets stay buried." "Or what?" she asked. He smiled, cold and thin. "Or I burn us both to the ground." Marissa smiled back. He flinched. "But you'll burn longer." At that moment, the library doors opened, letting in a gust of wind and rain. Graham stood in the entrance. Solid. Calm. A quiet reminder that she was no longer the woman who'd once fled a broken marriage, terrified and alone. "Everything okay in here?" he asked evenly, voice echoing across the quiet room. Callum's grip loosened. He looked between them, and in Graham's presence, he saw what Marissa had found. What he had lost. "You've changed," he said. "No," she replied. "I just stopped pretending to be the woman you wanted me to be." She stepped back, fully out of reach. 1 hour, Callum, then I hit send. Dawn broke over Seabrook with gentle streaks of gold and rose. The storm had passed, leaving the coastline washed and quiet. Marissa sat on the lighthouse porch, wrapped in Graham's arms, watching Lila and Cooper splash in tide pools below. Her phone lit with headlines. Dalton International CEO steps down amid family concerns. The press release cited personal responsibilities and an amicable divorce. Her inbox held a scanned custody agreement, fully signed, a transfer confirmation for Lila's restored trust fund. "Did we win?" Graham asked gently. Marissa stared at the screen, then out to the ocean. She thought of revenge, of justice, of the line so thin between the two. She thought of the fury that had brought her here, and the love that had saved her from it. "We chose peace," she said at last, "and sometimes that's the greater victory." Lila's laughter rang out as she held up a starfish, beaming. There was no shadow in her voice. No fear, just joy, as childhood should be. "What happens now?" Graham asked softly. There was no pressure in the question, no demand. Marissa turned toward him, her hand finding his. "Now," she said, "we build something new, something real." He smiled because he already knew. Below them, Lila waved, starfish high in the air like a prize. The rising sun caught her curls, turning them to firelight, and behind them, the lighthouse stood strong, a sentinel, a beacon of safety, of redemption. Dear friend, there are moments in life when silence is no longer strength, and peace must be chosen, not because it's easy, but because it's brave. Like Marissa, we may stand at the edge of betrayal with everything shaking beneath us, but how we respond defines who we become. The Stoics remind us that we cannot control what others do, but we can control what we stand for. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply walks away with its head held high, holding the hand of someone worth starting over for. In the end, building something real is the quietest, fiercest form of victory. If this story moved you, please consider liking the video, sharing it with someone who needs strength today, and subscribing to the channel for more stories that remind us what resilience looks like.